All right, so we just talked about in the last lecture how JFK, he doesn't like people who are too cautious. He doesn't like people who are going to doubt the plan. He wants people who are decisive, who don't wait around, who move and go quickly, who have results. These are the people he likes. He doesn't like the kind of old-fashioned, slow, cautious, like let's consider every possible bad outcome of a particular action. He doesn't like that. Too slow. It's boring. Don't do it. Okay. He likes the quick action. Okay. Well, that could be good, but it can also not be good, right? It can go really badly. And the pitfalls of JFK's attitude on foreign policy are apparent in his attempted invasion of his support for the attempted invasion of Cuba at the Bay of Pigs. Okay, so we talked about how Eisenhower, first of all, we talked yesterday about how Fidel Castro overthrows the guy in Cuba, becomes the dictator in Cuba himself, establishes ties with the Soviet Union, and Eisenhower puts the embargo on, and Eisenhower is also training troops for the potential of invading. Okay, but these are Cubans in exile, right? Who are being trained by American forces or with American help. And so JFK is going to continue that training, okay? And the whole idea here is that we were going to be supporting an invasion led by Cuban exiles who were going to go in and rally all these people who were unhappy with Castro and spark a big rebellion and overthrow Castro. That was the whole premise of the invasion theory. And so JFK coming in is going to pretty quickly give go-ahead approval, go ahead with this invasion plan, right? Why? Well, Castro, of course, is getting closer and closer to the Soviet Union in terms of his diplomatic ties to them. He's receiving military support from them in terms of weapons, right? He's doing trade with them. And he's increasingly virulent, or he's just very virulent in his anti-American rhetoric, okay? And of course, you got lots of Cuban refugees who are coming over talking about how bad it is in Cuba, how people are just getting executed and so forth, okay? So JFK is afraid that Castro is going to be a satellite state of the Soviet Union in the Caribbean, a really bad place to have for the United States to have a satellite state of the Soviet Union, right? And he wants to prevent that from happening. So the whole point of the Bay of Pigs invasion was to diminish the level of control that the Soviets could have in Cuba and prevent there from being a Soviet satellite state there. So that was the point, right? Okay, so some people within Kennedy's government, like the push forward, right, to go ahead with the invasion. This is being led, McNamara, his defense secretary, supports it. The CIA is planning a lot of it. It's a sort of ideal CIA type of thing, right? It's supposed to be this secret operation, not that big, but boom, have big impact, right? And they're pushing it, right? And it's exciting. Okay, but some people are saying, like, slow down. I don't know about this. First of all, Cuba's actually kind of a big place, okay. Second of all, is this ethical? I mean, aren't we doing kind of the same thing that the Soviets do and that, the communists in general do? Like, maybe we shouldn't, do this. Okay, so some people are raising concerns, okay, but it's not, the thing goes forward nonetheless, all right? And the plan, of course, was that the United States would provide support to the Cuban exiles who were going to be leading the rebellion. And that support would include air strikes, and it would include naval support out in the Caribbean offshore. Okay. There was also a plan to assassinate Castro. That was part of the whole thing. It's not even clear still how much JFK actually knew about that plot. So it's, you can reason it both ways. It's unlikely the CIA would have planned something like this without his approval, but there's not a clear paper trail linking JFK to knowledge about the assassination elements here of the plan, they say. Okay, so the invasion of the Bay of Pigs in Cuba begins on April 15th, tax day, but not this year, April 15th, 1961, the first year, of course, of JFK's presidency. And it starts with an American airstrike, okay? And we were trying to take out Castro's planes. And they wanted to conceal that the United States was providing air support, so they painted the planes to look like Cuban planes, so that Castro would think, oh, these rebels stole planes from me, and they now are bombing me, okay? But that really didn't fool anybody at all, Like Castro knows these are American planes, and now he knows the invasion is imminent because the strike has happened, and the strike actually didn't take out very many airplanes. So this airstrike was a complete disaster. Okay, Castro already knew that some kind of invasion was probably going to happen. The United States had not done a very good job of concealing the fact that Cuban exiles wanted to invade. Okay, and so Castro was already expecting something. He was thinking, maybe he's probably thinking, it's likely that the United States is going to be involved. Okay, well, here comes the airstrike. Well, Cuban exiles don't just get airplanes out of nowhere. And, Castro knows how many planes he had. I don't think he knows not any missing, or he can find that out pretty quickly. So they know that the United States is involved, and they know that the invasion is imminent. Okay, so now as the failed airstrike is happening, there is the landing force approaching the Bay of Pigs. It's got 1,400 men who are going to be responsible for the invasion, Cuban exiles. Only like 130 or so of them are professional soldiers, okay? They've all received some little bit of training at least, all right? But they're being escorted towards the Bay of Pigs by American destroyers, okay? They're on their way, okay? So the secrecy of the covert element of the operation is gone after the airstrike fails, okay? And, Kennedy's press secretary said that it was the least covert operation in military history. Okay, but Kennedy is going to go forward with it, but he alters the plan. He's going to take back some of the air support that he had said would be available to the invasion force. So in other words, there's not going to be a second airstrike on Cuba. Why? Because he was afraid that now it would be even more obvious that the United States was involved, and he was afraid that if one of the planes got shot down, then they would have proof that the United States was involved in this invasion. Okay, and he didn't want that to happen. Okay, so he doesn't support the invasion force with an airstrike. Okay, so now the landing, but the invasion is supposed to go forward. So here come the invasion force. The guys, the exiles who are leading the rebellion are in these amphibious landing craft, and the landing craft are running into coral reef, and they're carrying up the landing craft, and they're sinking. And then Castro's got his fighter planes who are coming in and shooting missiles at the landing craft and at the ships, sinking them. It's a disaster, okay? It's a disaster. Some of the guys get to shore, and then it's like the Bay of Pigs is like a swampland. So they're like struggling through the land. They can't go quickly, They got heavy packs, whatever. And there's no cover for them because, as they're moving slowly, there's nowhere to take cover from Castro's troops, all right? So it's a complete disaster, and 114 men die. Another over 1,100, almost 1,200 men are captured. So it is a complete disaster. So we'll talk a little bit about the consequences of the Bay of Pigs invasion in the next bit of lecture.